Well, hey, Natalie, you're a liberty-minded, freedom-loving individual, and I'm excited to hear what you have to say about exercising rights. Now more than ever, individuals are realizing their power. So, Natalie, how can individuals stand up and push back against state and local authorities?
Well, there are a lot of ways that you can do that. I would always say the overarching theme should be you should question authority. And authority is in quotation marks because they are not what they think they are. So don't ever be afraid to ask. And I'm going to go into just a few examples that happened recently and kind of give an illustration of that. So to start with, local ballot issues, people are just now starting to got their blue book, statewide blue book, but then there's the local gray book, which describes TABOR issues that you're going to vote on in the November election. Timing is very limited in getting into the gray book comments section. So while some people may be watching this video, they didn't have the chance to do that. But one of the things to keep in mind is that there will be government organizations that will use taxpayer money to present one side of the issue that may be on a ballot. Governments are prohibited to certain limits on what they can do. It needs to be a balanced presentation. So if you start to see something in your community where it is not being fairly represented by both sides, you need to challenge that. And there are avenues that you can take. But just keep in mind, because they are only presenting it from the one direction, doesn't mean you can't challenge and take control of the issue. That's one example. I'm going to give an example of where people were in the process recently of submitting those for and against statements for the local ballot issues. This occurred in Littleton. So a good friend down in Littleton went to submit one of those for against statements, I should say, on a measure in Littleton that will authorize the government keeping excess TABOR collections or tax collections. And this individual went to the city or called the city clerk a day in advance of the deadline. And just as a refresher, we've done a video on this, but if you present this or submit this 500 words or less comment for the local ballot issue, either for or against, by a deadline, you're supposed to be published in it. And that's a great avenue for expressing your side of the ballot measure, a tax increase in this case, because it's going to every single voter out there. So this is a pretty important publication. Well, one of the steps is to contact the designated election official. And in the case of a city election like this one in Lakewood, or I'm sorry, Littleton, that would be the city clerk. So this friend, old-time acquaintance activist, had a statement already for the against on this TABOR issue and called the city clerk, the DEO, designated election official, a day in advance to confirm the deadline. Out of the blue, the city clerk says, "This is not a TABOR election, and we won't be doing a local ballot issue book, the gray book, we call it." Well, this friend, knowing that I'm heavily involved with TABOR from multiple ways, called me up to confirm whether this could be possible, that this measure, which was being forced to be on the ballot because it was a TABOR issue and had been clearly presented as a TABOR issue, all of a sudden have a city clerk say, "Oh, I'm sorry, we're not taking your statement." So the friend calls me. I draft up a couple responses for him to send an email to the city clerk, get in writing this response, this ridiculous response they've made. Meanwhile, I called also a local media outlet called Complete Colorado. And the editor, Complete Colorado, got a hold of their reporter, Sherry Pife. And Sherry went to follow on this story because it was just absolutely ridiculous reasoning. Sherry, after talking to the city clerk has dug in her heels. So now we've got two people who have talked to the city clerk, and city clerk's told them not doing a local gray book TABOR notice. Sherry continued to dig, calling the city attorney. Finally, city attorney calls back and says, "Sorry, it was all a big misunderstanding." Actually, he tried to say, first of all, my friend was in the wrong and had misunderstood it. But then the reporter said, "Well, I'm sorry, but I talked to the city clerk, so I know what she said." And then all of a sudden, this issue magically disappeared, and the friend got to submit the against statement for the TABOR issue. So sometimes it takes going to that extreme. And again, question authority, because I mean, you're talking to like government employee, right? They should know the rules, right? No, not. So let's keep going here. All right. As I just said, you may not get the right information just because you ask government staff. Don't be afraid to challenge. And it's proven true over and over and over. If a certain person has, they're discussing policy, has a question, it's just, they feel like, well, everybody else must know because nobody else is asking it, right? Well, in many cases, somebody else is wondering that question. So it doesn't hurt to ask. It's your money, it's your rights. These are these powers that we have, and to not question, it just means we're blindly handing something away, right, to that authority. So this plays also into the levy reductions. You and I have talked, Brandon, about the way to figure out what you should try to get a local government to lower the mill to counter this proposition HH, the real solution. Well, there's some financial figures involved with this. And I can say here in Lakewood, we've got a city councilor who is made a motion. It's on the floor for the October 9th hearing, public budget hearing, to lower the mill, basically providing property tax relief in the form of, let's say, over $1 million potentially. But the budget department is claiming that it won't be that much. Property taxes aren't going up that much. The budget department has actually said we're only seeing about a 10% and change increase in property values. Now, you and I have done enough of these articles to know that somebody saying we're only seeing about a 10% increase in the property values is working on some different accounting sheet. Now, that's fine to present it, but then there needs to be background information, background documents. So what we have here in Lakewood is, instead of just rubber stamping, the staff wants to just continue with the property tax mill levy as is. And that means the city's going to benefit all that extra money. But because it's been a question authority kind of a thing, even from a city councilor, they're getting a spiel and they're questioning that authoritative type voice. And now, instead of it becoming just run over like a bulldozer over a motion to reduce something, now it's making news. Now the council is talking about this. So, and challenging it, because like when somebody says, oh, it's only going up to X amount, blah, blah. I swear, that's one of the last things that people should trust government with. It's only going to be this. It's only going to be that. Don't be afraid to ask these questions. Now I'm going to go on to one more, and then, I'm sorry I've been going, so I hope you haven't wanted to say anything here because I've just been going away. But something else, when we're talking about knowing your rights, this is a separate topic here, is that with TABOR elections, first of all, they should be printed in the local gray book. If there's a TABOR election, it should include a section. And a lot of the county governments actually have sample ballots that have all the ballot issues. So people can start there to see what are these ballot issues coming up, because we haven't gotten the gray books yet. We've only gotten the blue book so far right now. If there is a special district election in a eligible elector's jurisdiction where they own property, I say it phrased like that because it also includes business personal property. Those special districts, the eligible voters also have a right to vote on those. So let's say, as an example, you live in Aurora, and that's you're in the Arapahoe County section. So that's where you reside. That's where you're going to vote on your city council, your school district, county issues, things like that. But let's say you also own a business over in, let's say, Larimer County, okay? And up in Larimer, there's going to be a special district election, like a park and recreation district, a metropolitan district, a fire district, those different type of special districts, not a school, not a county, not a city, but these special districts, which are basically roughly around 2,900 types of governments here in Colorado. There's a lot of them. Those, if you own that business, let's say real property, meaning a lot of land and a commercial building, a store, let's say, or even if you rented a building, but you own business personal property and pay the tax, have that, because business owners pay that tax on equipment based upon us over a certain level, and et cetera. You have the right to vote in those elections. So this has led to some confusion in over the years because there have been some who have said, well, I got 2 ballots. And after they realize the error, they'll come fix that statement and they'll say, okay, I got it. I'm voting on these elections here, but because I also am an eligible elector over where I own the property, I have that right to vote. And I've included on the screen here, which has been stuck here, so people probably had time to read it, that these are the different qualifications that one would fit to be able to vote in that election. So what it's saying here is if you're a resident, so let's say you own the business or real property or your home, and you're a resident of that area, of course, you're going to vote in that special district election. But then also, if you're the owner of taxable real or personal property situated within the boundaries of that special district. And a couple more, a person who's obligated to pay taxes under a contract to purchase taxable property in the special district, and even the spouse or civil union partner of somebody who owns that taxable business personal property tax. Now, the governments are supposed to be able to, what they do is, see, normally the election department, they know the registered electors who live in the area. They've got that list. But when they need the list of who owns that real business, personal property, those other situations, even another second property, let's say you have a mountain home or something like that, you're a cabin, something, you've got that scenario too. What the election department has to do is go over to the assessor's office, well, literally send them an email and say, send us a list of all property owners who are paying that business personal property tax or the business property tax. And then the election department is supposed to send those ballots out to those folks. Now, have there been glitches in that system? Yes, because I have witnessed that. Even during regular elections, sometimes goofs happen. But it is good to be on the lookout and know that you have the right to vote in that because, especially, let's say somebody owns a vacant lot somewhere and, they're paying some type of a metropolitan district or park district tax, and they don't even use that property. It's a vacant lot. They're not really providing actual need or demand in a lot of the public services that others may use. So when you talk about taxation without representation, if you're not even like living there using the, you're not using it on the same basis as somebody else. So it's important to know you're still paying the same property taxes. You should certainly take advantage of being able to vote on a tax hike, especially if one takes away TABOR rights forever, because you never know, maybe you actually want to use that vacant lot to move there. You wouldn't have wanted to give up your TABOR rights in the meantime. So it's good to pay attention to those type of things. Just as a reference, if anybody wants to look into that a little further, that's our Colorado Revised Statute 32-1-806. And you can see on the bottom of this page here, you're just completing the same basic type of information with that ballot, affirming the oath as an eligible elector. That's pretty much the end of it. I hope that was a quick video, but if not, hopefully it was good. And it was really about know your rights and know your power.
Oh, definitely. I think, especially when it comes to elections, a lot of people only pay attention ever so often, right? When an election comes up, they're not thinking about it the rest of the year. But knowing when you can vote, where you have the ability to vote, and what kind of a voice you can have in terms of the blue book or the gray book, in terms of the voice of your community. I mean, how you can actually have an influence over these local elections, which are really, the most important thing out there. People get discouraged because they can't control what's going on in Congress or in the White House. But you do have so much power, you have so much control over what happens in your local government, your local jurisdiction, and you got to know your rights. You got to know the power that you have in order to exercise that. power and rights to its fullest capability. So thank you so much, Natalie. What do you want to leave us with here?
Just like I just it compels they are in control of this, and the government wants to manipulate, whether it's just by claiming they don't really know that citizens might want to be involved, or that it's intentional to keep this information. I was hoping somebody um with their local blue book submission for the city of Golden. Golden's got two tax issues. One is a 6 mil property tax increase. 6 mil, 6 mil, like we don't have a property. And Golden's put this on the ballot. And then a fire department issue there, which is tied to that, but then a lodging tax too. That's the other one, which is, oh, talk about cost of housing. Well, let's just suck more taxes out of people who are in temporary lodging at a hotel, right? Because everybody's, they think government thinks everybody's going to Disneyland. We can just tax them however much we want. But no, sometimes it's people that are just using that. Maybe they're a traveling nurse, whatever. Anyway, I'm off track. But point being, when we went to go look this up about City of Golden's website about these two tax issues and confirm the deadline and who to send into for the local gray book, they didn't even have the ballot issues posted. I mean, so if I'm searching around, how's the average person supposed to be knowing about this stuff? And that is just government failure to let people know about their rights. I've seen some governments who actually, very few granted, will publish and say, we are seeking your con statement about a tax issue. We're also seeking the pro side. We're advertising it to let you know you have this right and this opportunity, this window of time. Do these steps and submit it. But then you got people like City of Golden who can't even bother to put it up on the website. So now I'm done ranting, but government is not in your favor. So know what you
Definitely.
got to do to fight them.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, these politicians, these bureaucrats, these people don't have our best interests at hearts. They don't know what's best for us in any ways. So for people to be able to exercise their power, exercise their rights, and it's empowering. It's really empowering to know that you have this power, that you have these rights to have a voice in your community. And that's really what we need is the citizen participation. The future belongs to those who show up. I firmly believe that. It's time for people who believe in liberty and freedom to show up in greater numbers, speak out, stand up, because we know what the alternative is.
Yeah, and one final, a lot of these protections we have in place were put in by um and somewhat maybe founding fathers, but then since then, activists. And to not defend these as much as possible. I mean, if we lose them, we've got who is the ruling class. They're not going to give us, so even more valuable. So it was great to be able to talk to people. I hope people learn some new things. Um, and for those who are timid, um, don't be, don't be. It feels really empowering, um, fulfilling, and to take on the government and win. And winning against the government happens every day.
Awesome. Well, great positive note. Thank you so much, Natalie. Look forward to talking to you again soon. Take care.
Thanks.